Hi, everybody. Good afternoon, and not good afternoon, good morning. Happy Thursday. Bethany Dotson, relationship coach and trauma sensitive yoga therapist for high achieving career women who have often a pervasive pattern of attracting emotionally unavailable partners or partners who fall somewhere on the line of a narcissistic spectrum. And this is for you. Today, I'm going to talk about the top mistakes that I see routinely, and I speak to dozens and dozens of women every month. Worked with hundreds of people at this point, and these are kind of the top three mistakes that I see women falling into when they're healing after a narcissistic relationship. And whether you've been married 20 or 30 years to someone who you eventually realized was narcissistic, and maybe you had some denial going on in there, or whether you've had many relationships that all follow a similar pattern. These mistakes are things that I see really common in people that are trying to heal this pattern forever. So if you catch this on replay, hit hashtag replay. If you drop in live with me today, say hello, drop a comment in the comment box, and I will circle back and answer you live to the best of my ability, or I'll circle back with you if you're on replay and answer any questions you have in the comment box. So the first mistake that I see is that a lot of women are getting the wrong type of professional help. And I'm going to say the word wrong loosely. They're investing in either professional therapy, they're investing in other coaches, other coaching programs, but they're not seeing long-term transformation. And the issue that is really common with this is that a lot of women get into talk therapy because they need that support, right? And talk therapy and other coaching programs, these things are good, right? I'm not against these things. But what can often happen if you work with a talk therapist or if you work with another coach is that sometimes, or quite often actually, that session, the work that you do with a therapist or a coach, can turn into a venting session where you are unloading things off your chest. And that probably feels good because maybe in other relationships or in other areas in your life, your friendships, your work, your family, you don't have the space or the opportunity to unload what's really on your mind or in your heart. So going once a week to a therapist or a coach can feel really, really helpful. It can feel healing. You can feel validated by that. But oftentimes what happens is that once you stop going to therapy, or maybe you don't stop, you keep going, but inside you're recognizing, I feel like, I don't know if this is really working any. I'm not sure this is helping. Like, I feel good, but like, I still feel stuck in my life. You become aware that there's still a gap there between where you are and where you want to be. And oftentimes, well-meaning therapists, well-meaning coaches can kind of coach you or speak to you at the surface, and they're not diving deeper into what's really, really going on in your psychology. And they can often just be containers to hold space for you while you vent about the last, thing that happened to you this week, the drama at work, the drama with your ex, what happened, with a guy that you've been dating that wouldn't commit to you. And it can turn into this cyclical session where you're just kind of talking about your problems, but you're not actively shifting your psychology. You're not actively taking steps out of your comfort zone every day and every week. You're not actively rewiring your brain and your nervous system out of a trauma response and into something that's more open and in alignment with the type of life and the type of relationship that you want. And the other thing, especially with cognitive behavioral therapy is all about helping you reframe your thinking, helping you reframe your perceptions on things. And that's great. But when people have trauma in relationship and they've experienced that trauma again and again and again and again, that trauma is not something that's just up here in your mind. And it's not something that's just up here logically in your mind. And talk therapy tends to focus up here, like the prefrontal cortex, logically. That's great. but it's like 20% of the issue. The other 80% is what's going on in your subconscious programming and what's going on, what's going on in your feeling state every day. And I've talked to so many people that have been in therapy for years, if not decades, and they still get into toxic relationships. They still feel anxious every day. They still suffer from insomnia. They still doubt their ability to go after their dreams. They still have, deep embedded trust issues. They doubt that they can trust themselves to make the right decisions. And that anxiety and those trust issues often stem from unhealed trauma. And that trauma gets embedded in your subconscious mind as a set of beliefs, a set of limitations that you've constructed, ironically, to help keep yourself safe. So I talk to a lot of women who've been betrayed repeatedly in love. They thought they found the right person, and then they get out of that relationship and they start to have the meaning about themselves, like, what's wrong with me? I'm doing all the right things. I'm doing all the therapy. I've done all the research. I've done all the coaching. And they start to, maybe it's not a conscious meaning, but a subconscious meaning that they're defective in some way, that they're like what's wrong with them? Why do they have to struggle so hard? And that belief system gets lodged in their subconscious mind so that they're not even fully aware of it. And when you go to talk therapy, you're kind of talking about stuff that happened in the past. And you're not talking about, you're usually not digging deeper into those subconscious beliefs, because many times you're not even fully aware that they're there. And it takes a trained person to be able to hear where you're stuck, to be able to hear the rules that you've created for yourself, the limitations that you've constructed to help keep yourself safe. And oftentimes, like I said earlier, a therapy session or even a coaching session with someone who's well-intentioned and they want to help you can kind of turn into a venting session, and you're not actually getting a structure or a plan forward or something to follow that's going to challenge your beliefs, and it's going to help you recondition your subconscious mind and the states of your body, the feelings in your body, into more elevated emotional states. So I work a lot with people who have anxiety. They have a hard time. They're living in a low level state of fight or flight. They can't trust themselves. They can't trust other people. They can't trust their judgment in dating. They feel like they can't trust other, men, period. And that often bleeds over into other areas of their life. They can't trust people at work. They can't fully trust their family. They hold back in their friendships. They don't want to expose themselves too much. They don't want to share too much. And so this becomes how they show up in life. And so and their body feels on a certain level unsafe in relationships. They feel unsafe. And if all you're doing is talking about the latest drama, you're not actually doing something that's reprogramming your brain and your body into learning how to feel safe in relationship, which is ultimately what trauma recovery, trauma coaching, trauma therapy helps you to do by using evidence-based methods, things like EMDR, things like somatic therapy, which is what we use here, to help you retrain your brain and your subconscious mind and the feeling states in your body to recognize that you can trust yourself, that you're safe with yourself, that relationships are safe. So the first big common mistake I see is that you're using the wrong type of help. You're getting help, that's great, but it's often not fully the right type of help. You're working with somebody that's kind of keeping you in your story. You're staying in your story. You're staying in the narrative of, why does this keep happening to me? I'm doing all the right things, but I'm 40 or 50 or 60. I'm still doing it. What's going on here? And that frustration, when you've been feeling like you're doing all of the right things, can take a toll on your confidence, and it can take a toll on your self-esteem, and your feeling state how you feel every day is one of the most important aspects and skills that you can have, learning how to feel better, emotionally feel better without buying something new, without switching jobs, without making more money, without dating somebody new to take away your loneliness, is one of the number one things that you have to shift if you want to have the life that you want to have a healthy relationship. So the first mistake, using a therapist or a coach that's basically, it's a venting session. It's not really giving you a structure. It's not challenging your thinking. It's not challenging your belief systems. And it's not giving you a structure and a proven plan for healing relational or emotional trauma and helping you to actually show up differently. It's not helping you stretch yourself and get out of your comfort zone day to day and week to week. The second mistake that I see a lot of women making, and this is pretty common, is staying chronically busy. And there are a lot of well-meaning experts, well-meaning, counselors out there, professionals that say when you're going through a rough time emotionally, you need to keep yourself busy. You need to, take your mind off of your feelings. And this is so wrong, because if you were in bad relationships and you sensed red flags, and 90% of the time, 99% of the time when I talk to somebody, when we dig deep, when she gets really, really honest with herself, there's always a moment within the first month, if not the first week, when she sensed that things felt a little off, like small, subtle things, but she could feel it in her body. And because she overrode that sign and rationalized or justified it away and made excuses for that feeling, she got really, really good over the months and the years that followed at ignoring red flags and subsequently ignoring her own feelings. And so ultimately, when that relationship inevitably ends because there were lots of incongruencies and lots of red flags, there's a lot of pain that's associated with that. And the downside is that a lot of people will say, keep yourself busy. Take up some new hobbies, go meet some new friends, maybe switch your job, maybe move. You can rearrange your life so that you're giving yourself things to do to take your mind off of ruminating. And what's really happening is that when you're chronically busy, your brain and your body are actually living in a trauma response. When you were walking on eggshells in your relationship and you were probably constantly wondering, is this going to work out? I don't know. I'm not really sure. Is he really a narcissist? Am I really overreacting? Or you were, seeing your partner and then, behind closed doors at night by yourself, you were researching articles on narcissism. Is this really a narcissistic relationship? I'm not sure. That is, that's traumatizing emotionally. It's traumatizing psychologically when you are in a state where you're feeling gaslit, where you're feeling manipulated, where you feel like you're kind of taking the blame for the downfall of everything in the relationship. That's emotional abuse. And emotional abuse starts off almost always very, 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 very subtly, very subtly. But the key here is that your body always knows the truth. It's that our mind gets in the way of that. And so when you become chronically busy, or when you try to keep yourself busy after a narcissistic relationship, what you're really doing is just continuing to live in a state of fight or flight. You're continuing to live in a state of keeping yourself distracted. And you had to keep yourself distracted from your feelings to stay in a toxic relationship. You had to continuously ignore your own truth and ignore your own heart and ignore your own feelings and compromise yourself significantly to stay in a toxic relationship. So when you get out of that toxic relationship and you cope by working 80-hour work weeks, or if you're not working 80-hour work weeks, when you're not working, you're busy doing 9,000 projects at home that you feel like you never have enough time to finish. That is really your brain and your body living in a trauma response. And if you continue to live in a trauma response, you're going to continue to attract traumatizing relationships and traumatizing scenarios in your life that cause you to feel like a victim again, to re-experience that stuff until you fully heal it properly and get that out of your system so you're no longer an energetic match for that. So that's the second common mistake that I see. A lot of women who get into caretaking roles in their relationships. I work a lot with high achievers. They work really hard. They work really hard on themselves. Subconsciously, they don't necessarily feel like they are quite enough. Then they ultimately attract underachieving partners, and it might not feel that way in the onset, but they seem to attract partners who aren't quite as motivated as she is, partners who have some kind of issues that they're not really dealing with. And it feels better for her to be the caretaker and take on the caretaking role because it gives her a sense of control. And that keeps you busy, right? That keeps you busy doing something. And it also prevents you from being fully emotionally intimate and fully vulnerable. So when you take on the role of being a chronic, busy person after a toxic relationship, it can be a trap because you're taking your fixation off of a person who's underachieving and a person who could probably never give you what you need because they're at where they are in their life. They're just incapable of that. And then you're taking it and putting it on work, or you're putting it on, 900 projects that you're doing at home to try to get your life back. But on the inside, you still feel like something's wrong with you. You still wonder, am I ever going to have a healthy relationship? So second common mistake is staying chronically busy, trying to distract yourself from your feelings, trying to have a stoic attitude about it, trying to hurry up and move on. So the third and final mistake, thank you. I don't know who this is because it just says Facebook user. Yeah, so the third, and appreciate you. So the third and final mistake is what I call having a go it alone attitude, or having I don't want to necessarily say do it yourself, but kind of a go it alone mindset or an attitude around your healing. So I'll give you an example. I spoke with someone recently who continuously said, I know what I need to do. I know exactly what I need to do. I've done a lot of therapy. I've done a lot of coaching. I've done a lot of other things. I've researched. I've read a lot. I know what I need to be doing. But she wasn't doing it. And it can be really tempting. And I'm not saying that this is wrong. It can be really tempting to look at your mistakes, look at the choices that you've made and go, okay, now I've learned my lesson. I'm not going to do that anymore. I know exactly what I need to do. And I want to talk about why that can be a trap. When you have a go it alone attitude and you think, and it's not to say you probably are right around, yes, I know I see the signs, right? Hindsight is always 20/20 in the rearview mirror. But when you have a go it alone attitude, and especially in terms of your healing, and you believe that you know exactly what you need to do next time, when you've had yourself for 40 or 50 or 60 years, and you've never had a great relationship before, often that go it alone attitude is actually a trauma response in and of itself. Because when we've been hurt emotionally, when we've been hurt in relationships, we tend to take on the rejection and abandonment that comes along with these relationships is really, really painful. And our brains are meaning-making machines. So you might make the meaning about yourself that, again, something's wrong with me. This is a really common one that I see in people. And because you don't want to feel rejected or abandoned again, and because subconsciously you're like, oh, I don't know about people anymore. I don't know about myself. I don't know if I can trust myself. You're subconsciously going to try to keep people at a distance. And when you keep people at a distance, when you feel that way about yourself, oftentimes the way that shows up is that you have I can I can fix this myself. I can take care of it myself. And a lot of women that I work with have spent decades with that attitude because they spent years or decades with the people with wrong partners. I don't want to say wrong, but partners that were underachieving. And they, in the relationship, took on the meaning, well, I'm just going to take care of it myself. And that's a trauma response. Having a hyper independent attitude is often rooted in betrayal trauma, emotional trauma. I'm too afraid to trust you because I've been let down so many times in the past. And this is really, really insidious because it can show up in your coaching and your therapy sessions. Because coaching and therapy is designed to get you out of your comfort zone and to get you moving forward into changes. But if you approach your healing with a sense of being way out here, well, I know what I'm going to do. I know the answers. This is what I'm going to do. You're bringing that same go it alone attitude, that trauma response, into your healing. So in order to truly, truly heal, you have to be willing to get uncomfortable. And if you've watched my masterclass, I have a free masterclass. It's 45 minutes. It's Break the Cycle, the 5-step blueprint to overcome a lifelong pattern of unavailable men and narcissistic partners. One of the shifts that I talk about in there is that you have to be willing to get uncomfortable in your healing, because what you've been doing so far in your life, I had somebody yesterday, she was like, yeah, this works for me. Being the strong, driven person works for me. But she kept getting toxic partners and underachieving partners and partners who weren't on her caliber. And that pattern of settling, even though it's painful, is not quite as risky as actually opening your heart to a healthy relationship. And I often find that women who've had this pattern for many, many years, their entire lives basically, their number one fear is not meeting another toxic person. They're really good at that. They know how to do that really well. Their number one fear is actually meeting a healthy person and running the risk, because subconsciously the risk of having somebody healthy means that she has to let her walls all the way down. She has to really, really be vulnerable. She has to really be emotionally intimate and emotionally naked in that type of a relationship. And that, for a lot of people, is terrifying, because that means that if that person were to walk away, you would really, 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 really be hurt. So it's never truly, in my experience, doing this, over the years, that somebody is really afraid. Yes, they're afraid of making the wrong mistakes, but really they're actually afraid of the success. They're actually afraid of having a healthy relationship. So just to quickly recap, the top 3 mistakes that you may be making that I see pretty commonly happen when overcoming a narcissistic relationship. And whether this is 20 years you spent with somebody who was a narcissist, or you've made it halfway through your life or more than halfway through your life, and you keep getting the same type of person, unavailable or narcissistic on the spectrum. The number one thing is you're doing therapy or coaching that is not helping you with lasting transformation. You're talking about your past a lot. You're using your sessions as a venting session, but you're not truly having your beliefs challenged and having your thought processes challenged. And this, again, is a part of, when we change, we have to be a little uncomfortable in that change, right? It's temporary discomfort until your brain and your body starts to get on board with a new habit. So it's surfacey. You're not using a trauma-informed method. A lot of coaches, they're well-meaning. A lot of therapists, they're well-meaning. I'm not saying these people are bad, but a lot of people are not actually trained to help you overcome emotional or complex trauma. I was talking to a therapist, a licensed therapist, a month or more ago, who herself didn't even know what complex trauma was. I mean, this is a licensed therapist that had years of schooling and had to pass a state exam and was seeing patients week after week, had a full patient load. And she was like, yeah, I don't even really know what complex trauma is. So you have to do your due diligence and really go for somebody that's going to challenge you, but not challenge you in a negative or critical way, but challenge you to your greatness, to help you see your blind spots and to help guide you past those and give you proven methods and tools to rewire your brain out of fear-based programming and rewire your subconscious programming and rewire your body to feel open and happy and grateful and good, instead of anxious or constantly worrying about the next thing that's going to happen that day. The second big mistake is that you're staying chronically busy. You got out of the relationship. That relationship caused you were probably super anxious inside of that relationship. Your body becomes trained to be that way. Your brain becomes trained to look for problems and to look for things that are going to go wrong and try to adjust your behavior. And you get out of that, and then you start to do that in life. You stay chronically busy at work. You stay chronically busy at home. You're trying to control every aspect of your life so that you don't get hurt again, and that nobody can then, there's no opportunity, there's no space emotionally for somebody to come in because you're not creating that space. You're too busy. And if you're not busy doing things, you're too busy up here in your mind, beating yourself up, wondering what's wrong with me. Am I ever going to meet somebody happier, or am I going to be alone forever? And then the third and final mistake is having a go it alone attitude. Feeling like I know what I need to do. I'm going to do it correctly this time. I'm 55. I've never had a good relationship. Now I know the red flags. And if I had a dime, and I'm not saying that this is, I'm not at all saying you're a bad person. I did this, right? You probably have the best intentions, but when you have 40 or 50 or 60 years of brain wiring and subconscious programming going on in there, telling yourself a few times, I know what I need to be doing, is not going to cut it. It's great. It's a good start, but it's not enough. You have to be using trauma-informed methods, and you have to be stretching your comfort zone every single week. And you have to be stretching yourself beyond what you believe is possible for you. And if we are left up to our own devices, this is why people hire coaches when they want to get in shape. This is why people hire coaches when they want to make more money. This is why people hire coaches when they want to build their business. This is why people hire coaches when they want to go to the Olympics, or when they want to compete in golf and they want to go to that golf tournament, because they know that they are capable of more, but they know that if they're left up to themselves, they're going to slide back into their old behavior. And it's not to say that you're a bad person if you do that. We all do that. It's just human nature to seek the comfort zone. So if you want to overcome 40 or 50 or 60 years of constantly attracting emotionally unavailable or narcissistic people, and you want to overcome the feeling of, God, I don't want to get through the last half of my life doing this and wondering if I'm ever going to meet anybody, or, I just had a client today say, I'd just rather be alone. If you don't want to have that attitude and you want to have the relationship that you want, and what you've been doing hasn't been getting you that far, you have to, number one, heal your trauma. You've got to be using proven, evidence-based methods rooted in research, numerous research studies and neuroscience, to bring your brain and your body back into alignment, out of that hypervigilance, out of that anxiety, out of that trust. And a lot of times people aren't even fully aware that they're living in hypervigilance. It just becomes so part of who they are that it's normal. It's normal to feel like they never have enough time. It's normal to constantly, feel like they're worrying all the time or overanalyzing everything. So you have to be using trauma-informed methods, and then you have to be getting out of your comfort zone. And this is exactly what we do inside Break the Cycle, which is my fundamental, it's my 12-week program for high-achieving women, is that we give you trauma-informed methods that you do every single day. And it does not involve talking about your past, right? We take you where you are. We see you as a whole, complete human being. And we just give you evidence-based tools that you're going to practice every single day, like you're going to the gym, like you're taking your daily multivitamin, to help retrain your brain and your body and your subconscious mind. And then as we do that, we get you out of your comfort zone. We invite you to challenge yourself every week with social settings, with when you're ready dating, with your career, with different relationships in your life, showing up emotionally naked and vulnerable and communicating and setting boundaries. And then over time, that new behavior, when you are consistent, becomes your norm. So if you're ready, if you recognize, I don't want to keep living my life like this. If you recognize, I do all those things. I've been in therapy. I use it as a venting session. I stay chronically busy and I feel like I can do it all by myself. then book a call. Go to bethanydotson.com/talk. And we'll have a very honest conversation with you about why you're stuck. A lot of people have, they have an idea of why they're stuck, but oftentimes their idea or their perception of why they're stuck isn't really the true block. And so we're going to help you get really, really clear on that call and what the true log jam is, give you massive clarity on what exactly is standing in your own way. Okay. And then the second thing that we're going to get you massive clarity on is actually what you really, really want. Most people that we talk to spend so much time thinking about what they don't want, or they spend so much time living in survival mode. They conveniently don't have time to think about a relationship, let alone a relationship with themselves, because they don't want to feel lonely and face their feelings. So we're going to get you massively clear on what you really want. Not like the, oh, well, it would be nice to have kind of goals, but like what you really, really want, because you can have it all, but the only thing that's likely standing in your own way is you and what's going on in your mind and in your heart and your psychology. And then if we can help you, and then after that conversation, we're going to give you the exact structure that you need to follow to get from stuck to emotional freedom, confidence, trusting yourself, and ultimately how to have a healthy relationship, how to date in an empowered way, how to date and show up emotionally naked and vulnerable, trustworthy, trusting yourself, communicating clearly, all of that good stuff. And if we can help you where you are in your journey, overcome all the stuff that's in the way, we're going to talk about how we work and give you an offer. And at the same time, during that conversation, we're not 100% sure or confident that we can help you out of integrity. We're going to give you the next steps for you. Maybe it's another coach, maybe it's another type of therapy, some kind of referral. So again, if you're high achieving, you're successful in other areas of your life, you're driven, but it's like the relationship piece, the love piece is like the one thing that constantly brings you a sense of shame. You don't really want to talk about it. I can figure it out. And you are, you've probably already done some therapy. You've already taken some initial steps with yourself, and you're single, meaning you're not hoping to work it out with somebody. You're not still kind of dating somebody that you're not sure about, who's probably not really your type. Then go to bethanydotson.com/talk. We'll have an honest conversation and see if we can help you end a lifelong pattern of settling in your love life and help you go from stuck to soaring emotionally and ultimately having the type of life and the relationships that you want. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful rest of your Thursday, and I will talk to you soon. Take care.